up in the wilderness, the wilderness, the wilderness. I'm up in the wilderness, the wilderness, where bears and coyotes and timberwolves will eat me and kill me and leave me as bones.
I am so happy to have you all here. I've noticed there's a bunch more subscribers and I am over the moon about it.
So am I. Don't forget about me.
Nobody could forget about you, Sassy. Like ever. Anyway, I'm Jax and I am here to tell you about a greeting card I created.
And I'm Sassy Jax.
I want to start by letting you know all of the things that we're going to use today, or I think I'm going to be using. That's basically what this pile is. Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Oxide inks in faded jeans, seedless preserves, walnut stain, and peeled paint. The Concord 9th Beautiful Branches stamp and die set. The My Favorite Things Essential Sentiments stamp set, along with the Santoro collectible rubber stamp Character Girl, number 39, The Lost Heart. I also am using the Nina cardstock that I purchased recently at Tuesday Morning. I cut that in half and made 2 card bases out of the brown stock. And then I went through my stash and pulled out some pre-cut white paper. I typically use the Strathmore Bristol Smooth paper stock for most of my cards. And I just have a bunch of other decorative paper that I've had cut and I'm just not sure if I want to use. I take out my mini Misty and I place the Santoro The Lost Heart stamp on the card base or on the card where I think I want to position it, along with the Lost Heart on the bottom of the floor. And I take out my VersaFine black onyx ink and I stamp that up with ink, and then I realize that there's a Santoro logo on the bottom of the foot, and I take out my washi tape so that the Santoro doesn't go on there, but then I realize that the ink shows up on the bottom of the foot, so I have to make sure not to ink up that washi tape. So that's what you can see here. I'm taking off that ink and then I'm inking up the rest of the girl. I turned the card over, stamped on the back side, and I stamp it a couple times just to make sure that it has a really good impression. I just love my mini Misty. I love it. Probably one of the best investments I've made as a crafter. Then I take out the Concord 9th Beautiful Branches stamp set and I start arranging the stamps on the card, thinking, okay, this is how I'm going to position them. As I start doing that, I use the Walnut Stain Distress Oxide ink to stamp up the branch, and then I realize, wait a minute, I don't want just white on the background. So I take out the Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink and realize that I want some sky. So I take out my craft mat and a blender tool and I start blending that faded jean around what's going to be the front of my card. I don't think that I've gotten any better at blending. That's something I still struggle with. And I realize while I'm doing this that the ink comes off on your hands while you're holding the paper. You spritz it with water after I have it blended just to give it a little bit more texture on the back. I proceed to stamp that onto the paper, and then I realize I'm not exactly sure how I want the stamp to look. So because I have the mini Misty, I really wasn't able to stamp it the way I wanted to in the Misty, so I did take it out and stamp it. Then I take out some of the berries stamps. There's 3 different stamps on this stamp set of different sizes. So I wanted to use the Seedless Preserved Distress Oxide ink and create some pretty berries that are flopping around on this branch.
I'm surprised all those berries aren't eaten by the birds because it's freaking winter out and they're hungry.
Well, it's not like they're gonna come and eat them. It's on a card.
No, I'm serious. It's super cold out and the birds are starving right now and they should have something to eat.
I hope to eventually have a tour of my craft space at some point, and I will show you the progression of where I was and where I am currently now. My schedule has been really off. I am getting to know the area and the community and different things like that, and it is really taking a lot of my free time that I used to have, and I'm digging it, except it's not as good for you guys because you're not getting as many videos. That may or may not change as the summer progresses, but we'll see. You will always get at least one one video a week from me.
Are you sure there should be leaves on that branch? Because I don't think you should have leaves on there. I think you should just have the berries.
Well, I wasn't sure if it needed leaves or not, so I added the leaves just to add a little bit more green so it was more springy and more cheery instead of wintry. But maybe you're right. Maybe the leaves aren't supposed to be on there.
No, I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to be on there. But whatever. I guess it looks okay.
Okay, I don't know if I want to talk to Sassy today. I like the leaves. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Once I have the forbidden leaves on the card front, I take out my heat gun and make sure that every single bit of that ink is dry. Then I take out my Versamark embossing ink, take out my black embossing powder, splash that onto the page where the thinking of you was stamped, and realize that I forgot to use my anti-static embossing powder bag, which is classic me all the time. I can never remember this. It's so crazy. But whatever. So I put the embossing powder back. I think,
Okay, you got this, girl. You can make sure that you take off all that embossing powder with a brush and it'll be just fine.
well, no, it wasn't just fine. So I decided to just take all of it off and do it all over, take out my bag and make sure that there's no static cling going on, and I re-stamp, try to get it in the same exact spot, and put some embossing powder back on there. I take out my heat gun and make sure that's all melted. I like it. I thought that the black might be a little too harsh, but with a brown card base, I think it'll be okay. Once I had that complete, I made a mask of the girl. Again, not realizing that I wanted a background on the piece. I stamped the girl on a piece of Post-it note paper. I need some of that sticky paper because on the Post-it note paper, you only get one part that actually sticks to the piece, and I didn't really want to use any tape because I didn't want that to pull up. So you can see that I'm holding the mask in place as I blend out the ink. I have my walnut stain, frayed burlap, wild honey, and my antique linen distress oxide inks as I create the background. I also took out my mini daubers to blend since I thought that the bigger blending tool would not serve me as well. And finally, I just take off the mask when possible to get into the different grooves, so I didn't want to tear the mask that I had painstakingly cut out of the paper to make sure that I had that girl covered. This is a definite long process for me. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to create in the background, but I did have that collectible card that they had given me in the package. So I decided I'm gonna match that girl like as close as I can. So it was kind of like a little challenge for me to try and match what they had given me as an example of the girl in the package. I was gonna try and match that on the card. I take out some water, I spray that to kind of give the background a little bit of texture. Sometimes when you have just a plain background, it doesn't necessarily look as real. Not real, but like more comic book. And I'm famous for making things more comic book. I love comic book style. I guess comic book is more associated with like graffiti style, and I just love street art and that kind of thing. So creating more texture on a piece like this is difficult for me because I'd rather just color it in and call it done and not make it look realistic because it does take a lot of time. However you want to create your girl is fine. Art is art. I take out my Spectrum Noir alcohol illustrator markers and I do my best to match up the colors that I have. I don't have the complete set of these markers, so I kind of struggle with trying to get the blending saturation correct because I really don't have enough markers to do the blending that you're supposed to, but I do the best that I can and hope for the best.
Her teddy bear is cute. I want her teddy bear.
Well, you can't have her teddy bear because it's not your teddy bear.
Will you never get me anything?
You have plenty. Since the big move, I have organized my new space. I currently am living in a yoga studio that my sister runs. It's probably about 400 square feet. I was living in 800 square feet, but now I am challenged to fit into this space just temporarily while I figure out where I would like to be permanently. Most of my stuff is in storage, and I'm getting used to having a even smaller crafting space than I did before and trying to work with limited craft supplies. I brought my essentials.
Essentials in craft world or art world is like a lot.
I mean, it's not a lot. Well, it is it's probably a lot to people who don't create. But for people who create, if you see when I'm able to do a tour of the space, you'll see that I really don't have a ton of paints or any of that set out. A lot of it's in boxes stacked up on each other. And I'm just working with what I have, and it's proven to be a good challenge. I'm not exactly sure what that stamp set is, but it's the Consider This Card a Hug. I stamped the card with that bottom sentiment, and then I took out my Favorite Things stitched rectangles dies and decided to put that through the die cutting machine so that I could get a nice stitched border around the edge of the inside of what's going to be the inside of the card. One thing that's different with this setup is that my camera is directly overhead. I kind of just duct taped it into submission, I guess. I used to use a camera with a tripod. This is proving to be a little bit easier, but you might see my head in the way a little bit more than usual. Once that's complete, I start assembling the card. I'm using my ATG gun tape to place the tape onto the back side of the card and then attaching it to the inside of the card. Getting it straight is just the worst for me, but I handled it. It happened. Thinking of you, and on the inside is Consider This Card a Hug. I really enjoyed creating this piece, although it did take me a lot longer than normal just because I did try to do a more realistic job of trying to match that girl into the package. It turned out okay. Not sure I like the leaves on the branches.
Neither do I.
But it's okay. I had fun using all the different stamps on the stamp set, and the person receiving this didn't even realize that it was handmade at first. So I think I'm okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to have some more update videos as time goes on. If you like this card and you're interested in seeing what else I create on my channel, consider subscribing because I'd love to have you as a viewer. Until next time, love you guts. Bye.
Something that I did not get a chance to tell you guys is that, yes, I live in my sister's yoga studio, but it is definitely not attached to her living quarters at all. So I literally have to, walk outside to get to her house. And I am up north, where bears and timberwolves and things that are wild have teeth and can eat you. So every time I leave the house, I look both ways. I mean, before in the city, I think I had the stress of, oh, I'm gonna go outside for a walk. Where's my mace? Where's my keys? Where's my phone? Who's gonna be out there that's gonna hassle me? Blah, 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 blah. Now I just have to worry about things eating me.